The joys of things like iPods. Okay, digital technology in the music industry. The music industry would tell you, and it may well be the case, it's had a very tough time given the issues around digital technology. Of course, it initially benefited really nicely from digital technology when it persuaded lots of us to replace our album collections with CD collections. But as the times and things have moved on, the problem of illegal downloading has become a major issue for them. And we've then seen the rise of legal downloading sites through things like iTunes and stuff. Okay, sites like iTunes, sites like Amazon now give us legal ways to access downloading. So the whole kind of distribution of music, whether it's legal or illegal, has changed. But the fact that we've got digital copies of music tracks and we've got widespread, relatively high-speed internet access available to many people is completely changing the way that we distribute music. And because it's changing the way that we distribute music and make it available, in terms of the recording industry, okay, then it's having to sort of weep and say bye-bye to its existing business models. The idea that we'll go along and pay lots of money to buy a physical product that we won't copy, we won't share around. Okay, it's an interesting area because one of the things that that the movie industry is now looking at is going, well, what happened to the music industry? Okay. So the same kind of thing that happened to the music industry, it's argued, might happen or is potentially happening to the movie industry. So as sort of bandwidth availability and storage availability has increased, it means that suddenly when it was kind of impractical for people to download digital copies of movie files, okay, it's now becoming practical for them to do so. And therefore, if there are freely available pirated copies of mainstream movies, etc. available, that people will download them and not pay for them. Of course, one of the things that an economist would point out straight away is, in the case of both the music and the movie industry, is that often in court cases where the companies are seeking kind of punitive damages, they often simply count the number of tracks that somebody's downloaded legally and say, well, let's say it's an average of $3 or $5 would be the retail price for it, and you've downloaded 1,000 tracks, right? So we're looking at like $5,000 worth of material you've stolen. Okay. Of course, one of the problems with digital copies is you've not kind of stolen it. You've taken away the potential opportunity that you might have handed over some money for it. Okay, but you wouldn't necessarily have handed over the full retail amount. It could be that if the price of something was a couple of dollars, okay, you weren't going to buy it at a couple of dollars. Not worth it to you. But maybe if something was $1, you might have paid for it. Maybe you wouldn't have paid for it under any circumstances, not even a single cent, not even a single penny. Okay? So it's difficult to put forward the straightforward argument that you can simply multiply the kind of retail price of tracks that have been downloaded, okay, as a way of working out what it is that people should pay, what it is that people have stolen, because that's not the case. Okay? Variable pricing seems to be the way to go, and indeed the music industry itself is moving towards variable pricing. Okay, so if you look on sites like iTunes now, there's variable pricing. There isn't a single price. Popular tracks, okay, it costs you more money to download. Less popular tracks, it's often cheaper to download. So often, kind of older tracks, things that have been around a while. Okay, so actually they've recognised the power and value of variable pricing, but that variable pricing also applies to all individuals. So it may be, again, it's difficult to say that because somebody downloaded a track that you've lost a certain amount of revenue, because they may not never have paid that revenue in the first place. That's not to say it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's right or it's wrong, okay? But it's simply in terms of an economic argument and how you calculate the costs and stuff, it's a difficult thing to do. And again, sometimes it's that thing that people may download tracks and then they're sort of shifting the model of the music industry. So, what they're trying to do now is perhaps in many instances, new bands, for example, will give tracks away or provide them very cheaply, and then they hope to kind of make the money elsewhere. So perhaps when the cost of your live concert tickets is going up because they're making more money from concerts, for example. So suddenly touring is profitable again. At one time the model was very much that you made your money on the physical product that you were selling via albums or CDs, and that you toured to promote that product, and you lost money on touring very often, especially if you were taking a big show out. Okay, the economics simply weren't there to be able to charge the ticket prices. But it's kind of getting flipped around now, is that some people are saying, well, we can't make money on the physical products, but what we'll do is we'll make money on touring or doing special shows or offering special packages or deals or arrangements. If you look at the things that Trent Reznor's doing from Nine Inch Nails, for example, or the things that Marillion are doing, or the things that many bands are doing now, where they're trying to give you kind of added value, okay? So simply, because you can simply download tracks very often quite easily, legally or illegally, okay, they're kind of recognising that whatever laws we're passing about it, people are going to do this, so let's try and change what we're doing. Let's try and give them something different, something that they can't do. So whilst I could easily illegally download tracks, or I can cheaply legally download tracks, okay, perhaps the real benefit for me as a fan of music would be the opportunity to meet the artist, the opportunity to get a better special seat in the area at the concert, the idea that I can get some signed merchandise, the idea that I can get something that's special and different and original and something that I would want to pay for, something that helps cement that experience between me and the artist. And the film industry, again, it's changed its practices, it's had to change its practices because of the problem of pirating. You know, people have pirated films for years, you know, on sort of videotapes and then later on sort of CD and DVD copies, okay? But again, the problem has perhaps ramped up and got worse if people can directly download digital copies from various internet works to access this material. And again, it's difficult to say exactly what it's costing the industry because they can do simple calculations based on the number of illegal downloads that they're logging, but that's not to say that I would have paid £5 or £10 to see it at the cinema. I might pay a reduced price to see it at the cinema, or I might pay full price. It's not to say that I would go and spend £10, £15 on the DVD for it, but I might get it in other ways, okay? So again, the argument in time to calculate the loss is a difficult thing to do. It's not straightforward as people think. Another ways that people are consuming music now, for example, is there's many services. This is an Amazon Link service, for example, where people can, you know, have a subscription service and get a certain number of DVDs a month or something like that. So again, it brings in that thing that, well, what would I pay for it? Well, maybe I wouldn't have bought the DVD of this particular movie. I wouldn't have paid to go and see it at the cinema, or maybe I just didn't have the time to do it. But as part of the subscription service, it's got value to me, so I'm willing to pay that amount of money for it to make use of it. Because one of the things that's happened, of course, is that there's a much shorter gap now between the theatrical release, i.e. films appearing in the cinema, and the DVD release, because at one time there was a long gap around this and it meant that the pirates kind of had a field day because there were no legal copies that people could buy. Now it's a very short kind of release time between the theatrical release and the DVD release. And again, what you're trying to do is mark your product out. So why would I want to buy the DVD when I've seen the film at the cinema, unless I'm a film file and just love those particular movies by a certain director? Well, the incentive is often there's extra material. So basically every film that's made these days, you know, above a certain budget probably, has the making of documentary that goes with it. There will also be the director's cut bits, there will be options for narrations, all kinds of additional things that I can get on the DVD, which means I'm more willing to put my hand in my pocket and pull out some cash and hand over that moolah, hand over that cash, so that I will get the DVD. Okay, so it's changed the way that they've had to market the products and the way that they're distributing the products themselves. So the movie industry is looking to see if it can learn any lessons from the music industry and perhaps to see if it can change its model. Simply saying to people, don't steal our stuff, it's illegal, won't work. Okay, so what they have to look at doing is changing their business models, because the music industry tried saying don't steal our stuff, it's illegal, and it simply hasn't worked, especially where many of the consumers of your product are people, for example, who are legal minors, and the idea that a band will, with the benefits of the record company lawyers, take lots of their fans to court, and we've got lots of weeping 14-year-olds who are being given jail sentences, it doesn't happen, or massive fines or something, is not the way to take things forward, as they've realised.